Then she can handle your expenses now. The line dropped like a knife between the clinking silverware and murmured laughter. The room froze. For a split second, you could have heard the air leave the chandelier. My mother's fork slipped from her manicured fingers, hitting her plate with a sharp, metallic ring. The laughter that had been bouncing around the long dining table died instantly. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Across from me, my sister Haley blinked, her perfect smile faltering mid-smirk. "Excuse me?" Mom finally said, her tone stretched thin like glass about to shatter. I didn't blink. You heard me. It was supposed to be a normal family dinner, if you could call it that. Our grand family dinner was an event, a show. Everyone dressed up like it mattered. Dad opened a bottle of expensive wine. Haley bragged about her promotion, and Mom loved her audience. I usually stayed quiet, ate my food, nodded when expected. Not tonight. Tonight, she'd pushed too far. She had leaned across the table earlier, smiling sweetly as she said, "Lexi, honey, maybe if you just put as much effort into your life as Haley does into hers, you'd be somewhere by now." The table chuckled. Even Haley. That's when I'd said it, calmly, evenly. "Then she can handle your expenses now." The room was still caught in the echo of those words. Dad's jaw tightened. "Watch your tone, Lexi." I tilted my head slightly. "Funny. I've been listening to her tone for 27 years. Guess it finally rubbed off." Haley crossed her arms, trying to reclaim the spotlight. "You don't need to be defensive, Lex. Mom was just being honest." Honest. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "You mean cruel. There's a difference." Haley's fiancé, Nick, gave an awkward cough. "Maybe we should all." "Stay out of it, Nick," Haley snapped. "This is between them." Mom straightened in her chair, her pearl necklace catching the light. "You know what your problem is, Alexis? You always take things too personally. No one is attacking you." I let out a breathless laugh. "You literally told a room full of people that I'll never be successful. How personal do you want it to get?" Dad shot me a look that could freeze steel. "Enough. We're not doing this in front of everyone." But I didn't stop. Something inside me had finally cracked open, years of humiliation spilling through the seams. "No, Dad. Let's do it right here. Let's talk about how Haley's the family star, how every mistake I made was proof I never measure up, how every choice I made that wasn't your way meant I was wasting my life." Haley's voice cut in quieter now. "Lexi, you've always been sensitive." I met her eyes. "And you've always been arrogant." She froze. The words landed harder than I meant, but I didn't take them back. The chandelier above us flickered faintly as the tension pulsed through the room. Mom reached for her glass, her hand trembling slightly. "You're being dramatic," she said finally. "We've supported you every step of the way." I nodded slowly. "Sure. You supported me by telling everyone at Thanksgiving that I was trying to make ends meet with her little hobby business." No one spoke. I stood up, sliding my chair back slowly, the sound scraping against the marble floor. "I guess what I'm saying is, if Haley's the successful one, maybe she can start paying the bills for once. I'm done pretending I owe you my gratitude for your judgment." I grabbed my purse, walked to the end of the table, and stopped by Mom's chair. She looked up at me, stunned, like she didn't recognize me anymore. For the first time in my life, I didn't either. Because I wasn't the quiet daughter who swallowed every insult to keep the peace. I was the woman who built something real, and I didn't need their approval to exist. "Dinner was lovely," I said softly, forcing a polite smile. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." As I turned toward the hallway, I heard Haley whisper to Mom, "She'll come crawling back when she realizes no one takes her seriously." I smiled to myself. She was right about one thing. I'd be back. But not crawling. I'd be walking back through those doors as someone they'd never see coming. 2 days later, I stood in the marble lobby of the Westin Grand Hotel, The same one my parents used to whisper about, the one Haley always bragged about staying in for conferences. Now, I wasn't there to check in. I was there to sign. The silver contract folder in my hand felt heavier than it should have. Lexi Carter, owner and executive director, Carter and Bloom Events. Those words printed in gold across the page made every sleepless night worth it. "Congratulations, Miss Carter," said Mr. Reynolds, the hotel's director, as he extended his hand with a warm smile. "We're thrilled to have you handle our anniversary gala next week. We've seen your work. It's sophisticated, elegant, and surprisingly emotional." I smiled faintly. That's the goal. I like stories people can feel. And they would feel this one. Because my family, every single one of them, was on the guest list. Haley had landed a speaking invitation through her hospital network. Mom and Dad would be there, glowing in borrowed pride. And none of them knew who was running the entire event. By evening, my team was already transforming the ballroom. The chandeliers glittered under soft white light, the scent of fresh peonies filled the air, and the stage backdrop gleamed with my company's initials. I ran my hand over the edge of the banquet table, checking alignment. My assistant, a sharp young woman named Brooke, approached with a tablet. "The Carters confirmed attendance," she said with a knowing look. "Should I make sure their table is near the front?" I hesitated, then smiled slowly. "Oh, absolutely. Right in front of the stage. I want them to see everything." Brooke smirked. "Got it, boss." When I got home that night, the glow of the city lights hit differently. For years, I'd watched those same lights through the cracked blinds of a cheap apartment, baking pastries until 3 a.m., praying something would finally work. I remembered my mother's voice echoing in my head, "You'll never be successful like your sister." Maybe not like her. Better. The next evening arrived faster than I expected. The Westin Grand's ballroom buzzed with laughter, designer perfume, and champagne flutes clinking like tiny bells. The city's elite filled the room, and in the middle of it all, my family. Mom wore pearls. Dad looked proud and detached like always. Haley, glowing in a deep red gown, soaked in attention from her colleagues. I watched from a distance at first, standing near the back with my staff in black uniforms, giving final cues through the earpiece. They didn't notice me, not yet. Haley's voice floated across the room. "Mom, can you believe this setup? It's breathtaking. Westin really knows how to throw a gala." Mom nodded, sipping her wine. "It's flawless. Everything looks expensive." That was my cue. I stepped up onto the small side stage, the mic cool against my palm. The soft hum of instrumental music faded as I spoke. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight at the Westin Grand's 10th anniversary gala. My name is Alexis Carter, owner and founder of Carter and Bloom Events. It's an honor to welcome you all." Heads turned. My mother's head snapped around. Haley's smile froze mid-photo. I saw Dad blink twice before he whispered something to Mom that made her pale. But I kept my voice smooth, steady. "Tonight, we celebrate growth. The kind that doesn't happen overnight, the kind that starts in small kitchens and late-night dreams." Someone clapped. Then others joined in. Within seconds, the applause swelled, polite, approving, sincere. I caught Haley's eyes across the crowd. She looked stunned, almost lost. When the applause faded, I continued. This event was built by a team of people who believed in giving their all, even when no one believed in them. I dedicate this night to everyone who ever had to prove their worth to people who said they never could. That line wasn't just for the room. It was for her. For them. The band struck up again. Guests began to mingle, and I descended the stage. My pulse was calm, but my steps felt electric. Haley was waiting. "Lexi, what the hell?" she whispered, still smiling for appearances. "You're the event planner? This is your company." "Owner," I corrected softly. "Not planner." "But yeah." Mom stood beside her, speechless. Dad gave a forced, nervous smile. "Alexis, this is unexpected. Surprising, right?" I said lightly. "Don't worry, everything's on schedule. We handle our clients with the same professionalism, whether they believe in us or not." Mom's face tightened. You didn't need to make a scene. I didn't, I said, leaning closer. You did. Years ago. I'm just cleaning it up. Haley blinked, her voice shaky now. You really built this? From nothing, I said, smiling faintly, while you all laughed. For a long moment, no one said a word. Then Haley looked down, whispering, I didn't know it was this serious for you. I straightened. That's because you never asked. Before they could respond, a waiter approached with a tray. Miss Carter, champagne for your toast? Thank you, I said, taking a glass and raising it slightly toward them. To family for teaching me what not to become. Their expressions, frozen between guilt and disbelief, were worth every hour of exhaustion I'd ever known. That night, as I stood near the ballroom doors watching the lights dance across the room, I realized something. Revenge wasn't about breaking someone else. It was about standing tall while they realized they'd underestimated you. For once, I didn't need their approval. I already had my own. The applause from my speech still echoed faintly through the ballroom when I slipped into the quiet hallway behind the stage. My chest was tight, not from nerves, but from everything I'd held in for years finally bursting into the open. The air smelled faintly of roses and champagne. My phone buzzed, Mom. I stared at the name glowing on the screen, then silenced it. For once, I wanted her to sit with the discomfort of not being answered. A few minutes later, I stepped back into the ballroom. The atmosphere had shifted. People were still mingling, laughing, and complimenting the event, but I could feel the eyes. Every few seconds, someone turned, whispering softly, That's her. The woman who owns this. I'd become a story at my own event. And at the center of the room stood my family, looking like they'd wandered into a version of reality they didn't recognize. Dad's shoulders were stiff, his expression unreadable. Mom was silent, gripping her glass like a lifeline. Haley looked small. For the first time, genuinely unsure of herself. I approached, calm and composed. Everything okay? I asked lightly. Mom blinked hard. Why didn't you tell us? I tilted my head. Would you have believed me if I did? Haley's lips parted, then closed again. Her eyes searched my face like she was trying to find the sister she used to mock. I didn't think you were serious about this catering thing, she finally said. You never mentioned. That's because you never asked, I said quietly. You all thought I was playing pretend while you lived the real lives. Dad sighed, setting down his drink. Lexi, you have to understand. We just wanted you to have stability. No, I said, voice steady but sharp. You wanted control. You didn't care what made me happy, only what made you proud. The words landed like a slap across the air, but I didn't care anymore. A woman from the city council approached then, smiling brightly. Ms. Carter, your setup tonight is exquisite. The mayor wants to meet you after the program. I smiled back politely. I'll be right there. When she left, I turned back to my family. See? That's the difference. Strangers respect me more than my own blood ever did. Haley lowered her gaze. You don't have to talk like that. Don't I? I asked softly. You told me once that success wasn't my thing. You laughed when I burned my first batch of cupcakes, remember? You posted it online. Her cheeks flushed. That was years ago. And Mom. I turned to her. Do you remember telling Aunt Renee that I'd probably end up cleaning tables for a living? I was in the room. Mom's eyes filled with something, guilt, maybe, or fear. Lexi, I didn't mean it like that. I know exactly how you meant it, I said. You just didn't think I'd ever be in a position to remind you. Dad cleared his throat, trying to salvage control. We made mistakes, okay? But we're still your parents. We love you. I looked at him for a long time. Love isn't supposed to feel like humiliation, Dad. You don't get to tear someone down for years and call it parenting. The words hung there, heavy. Finally, Mom whispered, What do you want from us? I paused. Nothing, I said simply. That's the point. I don't need anything from you anymore. A silence fell that no amount of champagne could fill. Behind us, the lights dimmed slightly as the next part of the gala began. Guests drifted toward their seats. I gave them a polite smile. Enjoy the show. My team's got everything handled. As I walked away, I heard Haley say softly, "She's changed." And for once, Mom didn't argue. Later that night, after the last guests left and the band packed up, I stood alone in the ballroom. The lights were low, the tables half cleared, and a quiet peace settled over me. Brooke came up beside me. "Big night, huh?" I nodded. "Yeah." She studied my face. "You okay?" "I think so," I said after a moment. For a long time, I thought I wanted them to say, "We're proud of you." But now I realize I just needed to stop needing it. Brooke smiled softly. "They saw it tonight, though, even if they never admit it." I glanced toward the exit, where my family had stood earlier, watching me with faces full of regret. "Good," I said quietly. "Let them sit with it." My phone buzzed again, Mom, then Haley. I didn't answer. "Not yet." I walked across the polished floor, heels echoing in the silence. Each step felt lighter than the last. For the first time, I didn't feel like the rejected daughter or the family disappointment. I felt free. Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. The city lights shimmered over the lake, and I breathed in the kind of calm I used to think didn't exist for people like me. Revenge hadn't been about money, or success, or applause. It had been about reclaiming my voice, the one they'd mocked into silence. Now it was loud enough for the world to hear. And tomorrow morning, the local business paper would feature the headline: "Local entrepreneur Lexi Carter wins contract for elite gala, Sisters Hospital among event sponsors." They wouldn't miss that one. As my car pulled up, I caught my reflection in the tinted window. Stronger, wiser, unapologetically me. The next morning, sunlight streamed across my kitchen counter, landing on the open newspaper beside my coffee mug. "Seattle entrepreneur Lexi Carter stuns at Westin Grand Gala, a self-made success story." My photo, smiling under the chandelier I designed, filled half the front page. I didn't even realize I was smiling until the reflection in the coffee pot gave me away. The phone rang again. This time, I answered. "Lexi." Mom's voice came through, soft and shaky. "We saw the paper." I said nothing. Let her fill the silence she'd always forced me to sit in. "It's beautiful," she continued. "What you did last night. Everyone's talking about it." "Glad to hear it," I said evenly. There was a pause, then a sigh. "I was wrong." Her voice cracked slightly. "About you, about everything. I didn't know how to support you when you chose something different. I thought I was protecting you from disappointment." I leaned against the counter, eyes fixed on the sunlight creeping across the tile. "You became the disappointment, Mom, not me." She didn't argue, just whispered, "I know." Behind her words was something new, quiet respect, maybe even fear. Before she could continue, Haley's voice broke through in the background. "Mom, let me talk to her." I hesitated, then said, "Go ahead." Haley's tone was small, fragile in a way I'd never heard. "Lexi, I messed up. I was jealous, I think. You were brave enough to build something from nothing, and I just kept doing what was expected. I'm sorry." For a second, I almost softened. But then I remembered years of laughter at my expense. "You know what hurts the most?" I said quietly. "It's not that you didn't believe in me. It's that you made sure no one else did either." Haley's breath hitched. "I know." Silence again. Then I said, "You don't owe me an apology, Haley. You owe yourself growth. Learn from it. Be better." Before she could reply, I ended the call. Peace, at last. By evening, I was back at the Westin Grand. My team had gathered for a small celebration in the lounge. Laughter, music, and the faint clinking of glasses filled the room. Brooke handed me a folder with next month's event schedule. "You've got 3 new clients, 2 corporate, 1 private mansion wedding. All referrals from last night." I smiled. "Guess I'll have to hire more people." "You'll need them," she grinned. "Word travels fast when you make a point like that." As the others cheered, my phone buzzed again, a text from Dad. "Proud of you, kid. Took me too long to say that. That one. I saved." I didn't respond, but I saved it. Because sometimes Victory isn't loud. It's quiet mornings, clear skies, and finally being at peace with who you are. I stepped out onto the hotel balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly below. The reflection of the ballroom glass showed a woman I barely recognized, strong, composed, radiant in her own light. And behind me, through the open door, my employees laughed like family, the kind I'd built for myself. That was the real win. No revenge could ever beat redemption. No validation could ever match self-worth. The night breeze brushed through my hair as I whispered to myself, they taught me what failure looked like. I showed them what resilience feels like. I raised my glass toward the skyline, not to toast my success, but to the girl I used to be, the one who sat at that dinner table swallowing humiliation and pretending it didn't hurt. She deserved this moment more than anyone, because the truth was simple. I hadn't become successful despite them. I'd become successful because they doubted me. And as the city shimmered below, one thing was clear. I didn't need to go back to that dinner table ever again. I'd built my own.